Arsenal won, Manchester City won. A frustrating game. Elation at the equaliser, but then after that, still that nagging feeling of that's 2 points dropped. I feel like that is 2 points dropped. I think Man City were there to be beaten today. I think at this point in both of our journeys, we're a better team. We are a better team than Manchester City. And had we done certain things differently, I certainly think we could have won. That said, some of the noise in the fan base this evening, I think, is over the top. Some of it, I think, is unnecessary. So we'll talk about that too. But look, before we get into it, if I could just ask you to like, subscribe. We're on the way to 24,000 subscribers. It costs you nothing. I would be massively grateful. We'll start, I suppose, with the lineups. Now, Saliba came back in, very good. Was very happy with that. If he's fit and available, and obviously he was on the bench midweek. As good as Mosquera had been, I think that was the sensible choice. Then getting into the midfield, this was the first place where, look, Marino comes in, and I don't like it. I don't, and I don't like that midfield. And again, the first 45 minutes proved to me exactly why I don't like that midfield. Now, I have no issues with Mikel Merino in midfield when he's there instead of Declan Rice, as he was against Nottingham Forest. I have an issue when he comes in alongside Zubimendi and Rice, because I think it really limits us offensively. And, look, maybe Arteta is trying to keep it tight. It's a big game. And then, our bench was absolutely formidable. So you say, keep it tight for the first hour, and then you bring on those game changers, the finishers, as he calls them. I don't think today's game was right for that. I didn't have an issue when he did it against Liverpool. I understood when he did it against Liverpool. I thought the criticism of it when he did that against Liverpool was unfair because it's Anfield. This time, it was frustrating. And look, we'll talk about how he rectified it afterwards, because I think that was good. But it was frustrating to see him starting. And then the front three, again, for me, Trossard wasn't the right choice. Now, Mikel Arteta knows better than me. I was criticising his choice of substitutions against Bilbao when he brought on Leandro Trossard, and I was completely and utterly wrong, right? So, fair enough. He may know more than me, but I just felt that with Trossard playing, we didn't have on that side pace to attack Kusanov, to attack Diaz. And that is where we've seen it time and time again with City in the last 18 months or so. Pace in transition hurts them, especially Ruben Diaz's side of defence, because he's lost a lot of that pace. And I felt like, and we saw it in that first half, there were opportunities where balls were played in behind. There was one that was central, and Trossard just doesn't have that pace to get on the end of it, and they get swept up. And again, that was frustrating. And that one, I didn't feel like that was a lack of bravery. I don't think it would have been any more brave to play Martinelli than Trossard, because I think Martinelli almost does more defensive work than Trossard does. So that wasn't even about a bravery thing. It was just a choice that I wouldn't have made, and a choice that I found a little bit confusing. But between the two of them, I don't think it was the optimal starting 11. But like I said, you look at that City team, I think it's beatable. And if Arteta had been going into it thinking, okay, we're going to keep it tight, and then we're going to, try and take the lead. Obviously, if we haven't done it after an hour, we'll bring in the subs, fine. But that only works if you don't concede. And we conceded, which meant we had a real uphill task. Now, people have been blaming various people for the goal. Could Saliba have moved and drifted off to cover Haaland earlier and just allowed Reinders to get the shot away? Maybe. Would we have had a better chance of not conceding had Reinders just been left to take a shot from the edge of the box with his left foot? Maybe, in hindsight. It was Saliba 25 minutes back into, not even 25 minutes, back into, his first game. What actually frustrated me the most was the way that City won the ball back in the midfield. Because Erling Haaland is the one that actually wins it. And he is surrounded. You've got Calafiori, Rice, Zubimendi, Gabriel, and Leandro Trossard all around him. And it was the fact that none of us won the ball there. Because we know we know when we commit in those areas, we leave ourselves short, right? We know we're leaving two back. So you have to win the ball, and we didn't. And that was what frustrated me about that opening goal. Obviously, look, Man City are a quality side. Like, let's not pretend that these are some scrubs. Like, they are a quality side that can, of course, hurt you on the attack, hurt you on the break. And it was a very well taken goal by Haaland. But that was where then it's like, okay, but now we're in trouble because we haven't set up to come from 1-0 down. And that is where I say, at least credit to Mikel Arteta. I mean, he actually took off Madueke, which apparently Madueke actually had some sort of small injury early in the first half, and they took him off at halftime. I wanted to bring on Saka and Eze at halftime. I wanted that to be for Trossard and Marino, to be honest with you. I kind of felt like Eze in midfield, move Madueke to the left, Saka off the right, whatever. The point was, I was at least happy with Mikel Arteta in that sense because it was bold. Previously, we would see Mikel Arteta still not make a sub. But at 45 minutes, he goes, right, 2 subs, 2 attacking subs, 2 bold subs. And I guess eventually it paid off. But I can't hold that over him. So, people saying, oh, he's not brave. Like, yeah, the team selection could have been braver, but you got to at least credit him for then trying to make the subs when he did. I also don't think anyone could have predicted that Manchester City would play in the way that they did. We really have never seen Man City do this. I can't think of a time where I have seen Man City not only... I mean, literally, this is record-breaking. But they have never, ever had that lower possession in a Premier League game or any game under Pep Guardiola. So that was record-breaking. But the way that they, even before they'd gone 1-0 up, they set up not to lose the game. They set up, really, how we've been criticised for doing away at big games. Exactly what we were criticised for doing at Anfield this season, right? And it worked. And that's the thing, right? Clearly, there's a reason Pep Guardiola, arguably the greatest manager of all time, chose to do it. Because he knows that it can work when the opposition are better than you. And I think that was a real acknowledgement. And he actually said it after the game, not in so many words, but basically, he didn't feel like his team were better than Arsenal's. He didn't feel going into the game that he had a team that could beat Arsenal playing their usual way. And so they did this. And I have no issue with that, right? What I have an issue with is the people that absolutely hammer Arteta for doing it, but Guardiola does it, it's absolutely fine. Guardiola does it, and then the analysis after the game is Arsenal need to be far more creative. That's what they're saying on Sky. They were praising the way that City were defending until they conceded. So that's what I find frustrating. But it did make it really difficult. We'd gone 1-0 down. They are time wasting relentlessly. I couldn't believe how long it took for Donnarumma to get a booking, by the way. The referee, and I counted it, 8 times. Excuse me, 8 times. Let me just get some water. My throat is a bit hoarse from screaming. Many times screaming at the referee because 8 times Donnarumma was given the wave from the referee. When they're time wasting and the referee goes, "Come on, speed it up." 8 times. Every single time he put his thumbs up to the referee, took another 7 or 8 seconds. David Raya gets booked the first time. Every single time that happens. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, point was, they're time wasting. They're time wasting. They're not attacking. And like I said, I have nothing wrong with it. And then in the second half, I mean, the substitutions they start making, it's unbelievable. Nunez comes on a right back at halftime. I think Kusanov might have been injured. Then they bring on Ake, who came on for Phil Foden. So that's one attacking player off for a centre-back. Then they bring on Gonzalez, a central defensive midfielder for Erling Haaland. So now they've taken off Foden and Haaland and brought on a centre-back and a holding midfielder. Then they bring on John Stones. It was unbelievable. I've never, ever seen anything like that from a Pep Guardiola Man City team. And that made it very difficult. But we'd given ourselves that mountain to climb. It wouldn't have been that difficult had we not gone 1-0 down. We continue to make subs, of course. And again, I credit Arteta. Arteta went absolute balls to the wall. We bring on Martinelli for Timber, which was a big shout. We then bring on Nwaneri for... who did Nwaneri come on for? For Trossard. And, I mean, God knows what the formation even was at that point. By the time we actually scored, it was kind of Zubamendi, Gabriel, Saliba-ish as the defense, and then everyone else just do what you want. And then, of course, Eze, wonderful ball over into the path of Martinelli. It was the first time that there was really that space in behind, and this was why it became so difficult. There was no space in behind. They were effectively playing 5-5-5-5. That was the formation, 5-5-0. Brilliant ball from Eze, and then the plaudits for Martinelli. Like, honestly, the week that he has had, I'm so happy for him, because it's been a really tough start of the season for him, right? He's been, for the first time really in his Arsenal career, properly kind of dropped from the starting 11. And fan base sentiment was at its all-time low around him. And he's come in this week and he has scored 2 massively important goals. And he's taken them really well. And I mean, the way he took the goal today is absolutely sensational. That is so difficult to do when you're moving at that sort of pace, to have the composure to just loft it over Donnarumma. And when the ball was in the air, honestly, I felt like I was in slow motion. You're just there, like, and then you celebrate. Then there's the VAR check. And these days, with offside, when it comes up that they're checking offside with VAR, you panic because of semi-automated. So you assume if it's onside, semi-automated, it's onside. So when there's a big delay and then it comes up on the screen that they're checking the offside, honestly, I'm like, if they rule this out, I'm going to cry, because the celebrations were wild. But they didn't, and it counted. And then Man City actually attacked again. Man City started attacking again, which was interesting. Arteta had to bring on Mosquera, which, again, I saw a couple of tweets of people saying it was so negative that we equalised and then we subbed on a centre-back. Sorry, we were all at sea. Defensively, City are now trying to attack us again. We've got Zubamendi kind of at right centre-back, but he should be at right back, really. But then Saliba was covering it because he got the pace to cover the winger. It was a mess. So Mosquera coming on made complete sense. If we had done all of that to equalise and then thrown it away, we'd have looked absolutely ridiculous. So I had no problem with that. And that's it. And it ends 1-1. And, I suppose you look at the table at this point. I mean, we're second. I don't know how we're second, to be honest, on 10 points. That's the interesting thing, right? We're, what are we, a point, 2 points worse off than last season at this stage? What have we done at this point? Yeah, we were on 11 points at this stage last season, right? Because we'd drawn to City and drawn to Brighton. So we're a point worse off, but we're actually 2 places higher up than we were at this point last season. Obviously, Liverpool, it's going to take some catching. But that's where we're at. I predicted we'd be on 11 points at this stage. I thought we would draw to Liverpool, draw to City. So the City draw, in a way, is kind of what I predicted, even though by this point I actually felt like we should have won the game. The defeat to Liverpool is the killer. If we'd drawn to Liverpool, they'd be on 13, we'd be on 11. It would be a lot more easy to stomach. I think people would be looking at that going, with the start to the season we've had, that's not bad at all. But it wasn't to be. So yeah, look. Could Arteta have done things differently today? 100%. Could he have been braver at the start of the game? 100%. As a general overall, I actually thought a lot of our players also just weren't at their best today. That I kind of hadn't touched on that, but I don't think it was the best game for a lot of our players. I don't know about you, but I didn't think it was Zubamendi's best game. Defensively, kind of hard to tell. Jurriën Timber, offensively, didn't think it was his best game. Calafiori, the same. Gyökeres. We'll talk about Gyökeres briefly, actually. I don't think this is the type of game for him. And the reason is that I think he did a lot of the work that he has to do very well today in terms of the running, trying to press them, all of that sort of stuff. Some of the hold-up play. But doing that takes so much out of him that you don't get the best of what he offers offensively. And I do think this sort of game, I think Kai Havertz, where he fit, would have started this game, right? And what we're beginning to see now is, because he's doing all of that, he's not doing the things that he's best at. And so there was one chance where Trossard, I think the ball was played into Trossard, and he played it across along the ground. He played it across the box, and Gyökeres didn't get on the end of it. And that's the exact opportunity where throughout the summer and stuff, I know for a fact I sat here and I gave you examples like that we didn't score. And I said, that's why Gyökeres is coming in. Gyökeres is going to score those goals. but he's not. And I think it's because of all of the other work that he's now being asked to do. Now, will he develop and get to the point where he can do all of that stuff and still do all of the stuff he's best at? Maybe it's going to take a bit of time for that. But yeah, I think that's where we're at with him. I don't want to go overboard. I've seen people going overboard. I do think, like, I'm struggling this season with the negativity in the fan base, the group in the fan base that basically think we should win every game 5-0, no matter the circumstances, no matter the opposition. And then even if we do win 5-0 like we did against Leeds, they've still got things to complain about. You know, I'm getting bored of it, to be honest, and it's making just making life less enjoyable. You know, I get it. You know, I agree. Arteta could have done better today. Sack him for it? Probably not. You know, in my opinion. Anyway, look, I appreciate you watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do click the like button. Please do subscribe if you're not already. And this week, content should, touch wood, be back to normal pretty much this week. Last week, Virgin Media, absolute disgrace. Just wouldn't fix the internet. So apologies for that. But yeah, we should be good to go this week. And I hope to see plenty of you in the live streams and watching the videos. But other than that, enjoy the final few hours of your Sunday evening. Have a great Monday. And I'll catch you all on the next one. Until then, goodbye.